Students Who Design is a podcast and video series that bridges students and the design industry. By students, for students. Be sure to check out our website, studentswho.design.
This is Students Who Design.
Today we're joined by Jackie Liu. She studies computer science at MIT and has worked at Girls Who Code.
This episode covers how to get into design with a technical major, the importance of diversity in design, and so much more. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Students Who Design is sponsored in part by Facebook Design. For more resources and information about designing at Facebook, visit facebook.design and check out open roles at facebook.com/careers.
Hey Jackie, thanks for joining us on Indigenous Peoples Day, especially at the Media Lab where there's currently a virtual reality hackathon going on, so please excuse any noise in the back. First, I would like to introduce what school you go to, your major, and where you worked over the summer.
Yeah, so I go to MIT. I'm a senior in the computer science department, and over the summer I worked at Girls Who Code as a product design intern.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
And how did you get into product design?
So I knew I came into college wanting to do like the intersection of art and technology. In high school I was like really into visual art, and like I was also good at math and science, so I thought that would be like the best direction for me to go in based off of like what I was interested in. And I guess MIT didn't really have like a specific like product design or interaction design like route, so I kind of had to like navigate my way through classes and like pick and choose like what appealed to me. So I would try taking classes in like architecture and like design classes here, and then I also started getting into like web programming and found that like the interaction design part of it and like the UX side of it and like the front end implementation was most interesting to me, rather than like doing back end things or like algorithms. And then I just realized that doing like the user facing things were most interesting to me, so that's kind of like why I've decided on product design as a path.
Cool. And so you had a lot of technical expertise and technical skills and requirements just coming from MIT. How did you decide between doing something like software engineering versus product design? Because I feel like when you're wrapped up in a school that is so centered on math and science and you're majoring in computer science, software engineering seems like a relatively clear path compared to like interaction design, which doesn't exist here. And I think at a lot of schools, you know, there might be students who are in an engineering program or in a very technical program, but want to make the jump to product design.
Yeah, I think this has definitely like been like an existential dilemma for me here at MIT, because course 6, computer science, is like one of the biggest majors here. Like I think like 30% of our undergrads are computer science majors, and it's really easy to like be lost in the crowd
and get like wrapped up in all the
definitely
like,
and like
there's
such a there's such a culture of like people graduating from course 6 here and going to like Facebook and Microsoft and Google, and like that being like your life direction, but I don't know, I think I realized that my relationship with like programming was more like using it as a tool to create ideas and like visualize out things that I want to visualize, rather than I was interested in like the computer science theory in and of itself. I would say that like being a computer science major here detracted from my direction as a like product design oriented person, just because like having to go through all these technical requirements does take up a lot of your like time and energy.
Yeah, and you need a lot of time to like invest in your craft.
Yeah.
So there's two huge things pulling for your time.
Yeah, so I think just because I need to like graduate with computer science and like do all the requirements done, it does like eat up my time that I would otherwise like be doing putting into creative work. But I think there's also like a huge benefit that I've learned from being here at MIT at like a technical oriented school. I think like no matter what major you are, there's a big culture of like whatever you study, you're gonna like understand the world and like build a model off of it, and use that in some problem solving to solve a problem. And I think that's like a really good skill to have as a designer. I think being at MIT has taught me to be like resourceful in my problem solving.
And do you think that with the limited time you have, how do you use that time to improve your craft, considering all the projects and work you have from school?
use the time.
Yeah, so you mentioned that like craft takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
but also your projects take a lot of time. So with the limited amount of time you have, how do you maximize learning new things, or how do you maximize that for design related stuff?
Yeah, I try to carefully craft my schedule each semester,
Okay.
so that I get some computer science requirements done, but also fit in like one or two like project-oriented classes. I'm really a firm believer in picking classes with like a final project that's like open-ended, where you can like pick your own idea and like go through with it and make your own creative decisions. That's kind of how I've found a way to pursue personal projects, even within having to like get units and credit.
Yeah, so speaking of your personal projects, you've made a game out of landscape paintings. You've also created Markov chains out of conversations with your ex-boyfriend over Messenger. What gave you the motivation to pursue these projects and really complete them?
Yeah, so I guess I'm being interviewed as a product designer, but I feel
Yeah.
like kind of at my heart, I think that I'm like an artist. I think at the core of like what I do is I really like to make things that kind of reflect my internal experiences and hope that like it resonates with other people and like makes them feel something. So in that respect, I think like the work that I do is really similar to like art. I guess like I try to like insert like my own voice into like my personal projects, just like by finding like open-ended final projects in classes. And I guess about my projects, I feel like I like to do something a little bit unexpected in terms of like product design and interaction design. I think we expect like a lot of like UX oriented projects to be like really practical, like
And very much the same.
yeah, like practical, like standard shiny buttons, like for the purpose of like someone using an app that will like make money, I guess.
No, that's exactly right.
So, and I guess a lot of my art takes the form of like digital interfaces, and I think there's something interesting that I'm playing with there in terms of changing a medium that's supposed to be like very user facing and supposed to be intended like for a design purpose, and turning it into something like personally expressive. Because I think, I don't know, on like the internet I always see those like art versus design, like what is the difference? And like art is like your own voice, and like design it's like you're speaking for everyone else. So I think there's kind of like an interesting like boundary between the two that I'm trying to work at and figure out.
So in this next segment, I want to talk more about your professional and career exposure. So to start off, how did you get your first opportunity or internship, and what did you do to stand out during that first phase of recruiting?
Yeah, so my first internship was for Formlabs. They're a company that like makes and sells 3D printers. They came to the MIT Career Fair because they have a lot of alums who are like, or they have a lot of MIT alums working for them because they're like Somerville based. I guess I did a little bit of web dev during like my winter before that career fair. So I kind of pitched myself as someone who did web dev and design and was like more interested in front end development. So I ended up doing a coding challenge for them, and I got an interview like on site. Wasn't too much of a travel because it was like 10 minutes away.
That's nice.
And then I eventually got an offer after waiting a bit. Yeah, so I guess I pitched myself as like someone who was interested in doing like implementing out designs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what would you recommend to a student who might have done something similar like a programming or web development internship, or even just currently, and they want to make the switch to design? Because at Girls Who Code, you were a product designer.
Yeah, so the reason that I wanted to go into product design was after that internship, I realized it was like super valuable to be able to like have the skill set to implement out like visual ideas. But I realized I was more interested in like the design process that went behind making those visual ideas happen, rather than like kind of
specs and then
like doing production level code and making sure everything was like what like the designer wanted it to be. So after that, I realized I wanted to like focus more and like market myself as a product design person.
Yeah.
So I think I started applying to like product design or like UX design internships. And the way that I marketed myself, so actually I met with like a career office person here at MIT,
Yeah.
and like she gave me a good structure for like pitching myself. It's like you talk a little bit about your past, then your present, and then your future.
Okay.
Like before I did this, now I'm doing this. In the future, I would like to do this with this. So basically, I was like, in the past, I worked for Formlabs, and I learned how to do web dev, but I realized I was more interested in like
The
design.
side. Yeah.
In the present, like I'm like doing all these personal projects. In the future, I'd like to be a UX designer because that's what I'm more interested in.
So you didn't wait for like the design role to fall into your lap. You more so were like, I want to do this, so I have this medium of personal projects to execute upon my desire to do it.
Yeah, and I think I feel like product design is one of the more like fluid kind of roles
100%,
you
yeah.
can go into these days, because I feel like it's less about your degree and more about like what you can offer and like how you can present yourself and what kind of projects you do. So I definitely feel like I've like focused more on my portfolio than I have on my GPA here at
I think
MIT.
that's most designers we've interviewed said they don't care, or like they haven't looked at their
It's
GPA.
been like, I don't know, it like stresses me out because like in high school I would get always good grades, but like here I would have to like tell myself it's okay to like fuck up.
Yeah.
And like as long as your portfolio is okay.
Yeah, as long as the portfolio is good.
Yeah.
So you're the only person on our show that worked for a nonprofit organization, Girls
Yeah.
Who Code. What did the design process look like there, and what impact were you able to make as an intern over the summer?
Yeah, so Girls Who Code is really interesting because it's not your like standard like tech environment. Actually, a lot of the people there work in like running the program. So Girls Who Code is an educational program. They like run like summer programs and after school programs and provide them to free for girls all over the country to get into computer science and do projects with each other. So a lot of the work is done like managing the logistics for that, getting the instructors, like developing the curriculum. However, there's like a small team that focuses on like the like innovation side of it and like pulling data from like girls in the program and like seeing like what kind of products we can make to like make their experience better.
Oh wow! So like there's this.
Yeah, there's like
there's this group that focuses on the feedback loop.
Yeah,
for the entire
definitely.
program. Okay.
And like not only providing the educational experience of like the summer program or club, but also like what can we provide to our alumni to like advance their like passion in computer science. So there are two existing products that they're working on that they have already. And one is called Loop. It's like a mobile app that helps girls like stay in the loop even when they finish their program and like connect over like interests and get like internship opportunities from that. And then there's also HQ, which is their like web-based learning platform that they're currently using for their clubs to like manage their like curriculum. So what my internship was, my big project was to kind of synthesize the two into one experience and imagine what
So
that would
Loop
look
and
like.
HQ?
Yeah,
Okay.
synthesizing the community aspects of Loop and the learning aspects of HQ into like a unified experience that existed like on desktop.
Wow.
And see like what that would like mean for girls and like how that would help them learn.
And how did you tackle that?
Yeah, so I had like one mentor who worked really closely with me. He kind of presented me like the scope of the project, and like I would go through a lot of phases. I think I spent a good week like interviewing people in the office to see like where the products were at right now and where they were lacking and how like synthesizing the two would bring them together or would like make girls learn better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you successfully made the switch from code to design as a web developer at Formlabs and then product designer at Girls Who Code. What would you recommend to students who are in a very similar position who want to make that switch from an engineering background to design?
Yeah, I guess look into what courses or majors that your school offers. I think I might have been a different major if I were at a different college, but for me, I think the most important thing to do was like pick and choose different classes that appealed to my interests and grew me as a designer and an artist.
Okay.
And I think it's also worth it to like pursue opportunities that are outside of academia. For example, you could join clubs and like do design work for them, like make posters, make their website. I think it's like really about like searching for the opportunities yourself and just presenting yourself like, hey, I want to do this. I can help things work out.
Yeah.
And just going with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this last section is questions that we ask every single guest, and they're questions that we have sourced from student communities on Facebook, Medium, and Twitter. So our first question is, having the experience that you do, there's probably some things you feel like the industry doesn't quite get about the student design community, and we're wondering if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah. So one thing that I've thought a lot about is how like design and technology are like continuously changing. And for me particularly, like I pitch myself as like a computer science student with like a design interest. So I'm like kind of pitch myself as like a designer and developer. And I think that's like not really well understood by like recruiters and people in the industry. So like they're like, do you want to do design or do you want to do like engineering? And I think like right now, like the industry doesn't really have like good places. Many like places don't have like good roles for people who like want to straddle the intersection.
Yeah.
But perhaps this is something that will evolve over time.
Yeah. And so you have a lot to manage in life, from life, work, school, side projects, and
Yeah.
more. How do you try to stay on top of it all?
Yeah, so this is like a really interesting question to me because like MIT, it's like very high pressure.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I think people perceive it as competitive, but it's not competitive in the sense that like students are cutthroat and like pitting themselves against each other to like get to the top. It's more competitive in the sense that like you're surrounded by people who are like doing crazy things and you're not like, there's always a tendency to like feel like you're not doing enough. If you're not like drowning in work, then you're like not doing it right.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing for me is to just prioritize and recognize that you're like a human being with limited time and like you need to sleep and like eat and whatever and relax. And you're always going to have like a limited amount of energy and you can't possibly do everything you want to do. So you really need to like focus on what matters to you, pick those things and just like do them. And like I think that helps you freak out less about like not doing everything.
Yeah. So there's a lot of noise in the design industry, from books to newsletters to articles to blogs, and the new Medium article about like 10 ways to get into design.
Oh yeah.
How do you filter out content that's relevant to you and that's good subjectively versus what's just noise?
Yeah, so I guess I like definitely see that there's like a lot of like those like random Medium articles saying like blah 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 design blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is what design means. I'm not sure. I think it's always important to be like critical and like take things with a grain of salt. I guess I like to take things from like an academic standpoint.
Yeah.
So like at MIT, I've taken classes like cultures of computing, which like lets us like learn, like read papers on like how computing has changed. And I guess that's not really particular to design, but I think it's important to like get a perspective that's not always just like random Medium articles on the internet. And like I think I also like looking at like art communities for inspiration. I don't know. I think communities that have like a social justice bent and like offer a perspective that's like outside of the tech bubble is like worth hearing.
Yeah. Do you have any mentors or people that you have or follow to stay inspired, or things that might act as pseudo mentors, like resources or websites?
Yeah, I guess one that pops to my mind is Amy Wabowo. I think she's on Twitter as like Sailor Mercury or Sailor HG. I think she was a student at MIT and like went to Airbnb as an engineer, and then like decided to like pursue like her own thing. I think she creates like bubble sort zines, which are like cute like zines for like that teach computer science concepts, and it's meant to like bring like cuteness and like girliness into computer science and like kind of change the face of like what it looks like to be a computer programmer, and change the culture around that. from being like a guy, like a white guy in a basement, like typing away at a computer, to like things that like more people can enjoy. So I really like the mission of what she does. So I guess I'm a little inspired by her in that respect.
So as a design leader on campus, I'm sure there's a lot of people that come to you asking how to get into design.
Yeah.
So what are some immediate actionable pieces of advice that you would give to someone listening to this episode right now?
Yeah. I feel like a suggestion I give to a lot of people is to like make their own website.
Yeah. No,
yeah. I think like having a like web portfolio showing the world who you are and like what your work is like really important. I think it's like been really important in crafting like my identity as a designer, and I think it like having like this little space on the internet that's just like to show who you are. It like really makes you think on like how you want to present yourself and like who you are and what matters to you, and like I think that's like an important first step in like knowing who you are as a designer, and like what you want to work on.
And our last question is, what's next?
I hopefully will go to grad school or get a job.
One or the other.
One or the other. I'm trying to keep my options open.
Super.
Yeah.
Awesome, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Students Who Design is written and produced by Sahil Koja and Omar Abdul Rahim. Visit our website, studentswho.design, for more information.